Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we're talking LEDucation again, intimate and interactive this March 2021. But we'll get into that with Wendy Kaplan and Craig Fox in about 2 seconds here. But before we do, Greg, we got to go light thing, right thing. Come on, man. Satco, SATCO.com.
That's right. As a commercial lighting distributor, sometimes you get requests for decorative fixtures, and I don't have a showroom here. So what do I want to do? I send them to a website, and I send them to Satco Nuvo because they've got everything for decorative fixtures: chandeliers, close to ceiling, outdoor, island pendant, mini pendant, pendant, wall fixture. Even lets you select your finish, your size, and your light source. Incandescent. Then you can screw an LED in. Nice and easy.
Ooh, go to satco.com. That's SATCO.com. They do the light thing, they do the right thing, and of course, proud members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. That's NAILD.org. But right now we're talking LEDucation on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. What's happening, Wendy and Craig?
Hey, Mike. Hey, Greg. How are you?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Made it through another show.
Yeah, we're doing it. Trying to do our thing here. So tell us quickly, let's start it off, Craig. Tell us a little bit more about ETC, electronic theater controls. What do you do there?
So, ETC is a manufacturer of lighting controls and lighting fixtures for both entertainment and architectural. And then as well as we have, moving lights, the flash and trash stuff that you would see at concerts and things like that. But we focus primarily on lighting controls, and my focus at ETC is everything and anything architectural and commercial. Hospitals, office complexes, college campuses, restaurants, bars, exterior, you name it, we control it.
Wendy, what's going on over at Felix? What do you do for them?
I'm the Northeast Regional Manager. We are a fixture manufacturer. We specialize in small size linear products. We've been around for 30 some odd years, so we're not one of these new startup LED companies. We're a global company, and we participate in almost all of the commercial and residential markets as well because our product is so versatile.
Greg, what are you doing over there at Premier Lighting? I think the audience knows by now.
Yeah. Recording podcasts and selling light bulbs. Craig, we happened to sit next to you, Michael and I, randomly at an IES convention. When was that?
100 years ago.
Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? Oh, macro.
We were at the IES National Conference, annual conference, I guess it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Really, who knows?
2019. It was August 2019 in St. Louis.
Go.
Yeah, in St.
Louis. Like I said, 1,000 years ago.
Yep.
I think it was in Louisville.
It was in Louisville.
Louisville, yes.
I might have had a bourbon there. I don't know.
Sure.
But you asked about doing this for LEDucation all those months and years ago, and I said, sure, why not? And then here we are.
Yeah, it was random. We were in the presentation on, it was something where we were looking at, I can't remember, darkness, or what were we doing there? Flicker? What was it?
Glare.
It was glare. That was it.
It was a scientific experiment on glare that we participated in. That's right.
And there were 6 people in the room, and we just said, hey, do you know anything about LEDucation? You said, I just so happen to be very involved in LEDucation, and that's where, it took a little while to get us all on. But so what do you do for LEDucation? Why are you volunteering for them?
I ask myself that every day, Greg. No, this has been great for years now. I, along with Wendy, were the co-chairs of the presentations subcommittee within the LEDucation committee, and we do everything. We put out a call for speakers with our marketing and PR team. We go through all of the submissions, which lately, the past few years, we've been getting somewhere between 135 and 150 submissions. We go through them all. We cull out the best. And I have to say that, once you get past all the life coaches that want to speak everywhere, we get the cream of the crop that come in to want to speak at LEDucation. And that actually becomes a problem for us because we have to figure out who's the best of the best of the best.
And that's where, how about you, Wendy? Why did you volunteer your time to help Craig with this? Narrow it down?
No, actually, it's the reverse.
Reverse.
I got roped in, and the second legication 2, which I don't even remember what year it was. And we used to have, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 speakers. And as the show grew, I realized I needed somebody competent and fun to help out. And Craig was a really good selection. And we've worked very well together to do this. And it's grown so much. The call for speakers, we used to have to call, when we first started, we would actually call people and ask them to speak. And now we unfortunately have to turn people away, good talks, because we just don't have the rooms, we don't have the space. It's a big change to go to virtual because we've had so many more people attend, and it's been great.
So what does that process look like when you narrow down, you said between 135 to 150 submissions?
And that's after you weed out the ones, like Craig said, that are the life coaches or want to
Yeah.
teach us about how to bank and all sorts of things. We look at the topics. We try to put the topics into categories so that we don't end up with 12 talks about control or 7 talks about projects. And then within that, we narrow it down. The last thing we really look at is who the speakers are, because we don't want to judge it by who are the speakers. We want to judge it by the content. And then we take a look at it and move things around and see who's spoken recently. And there's a lot of variables. Craig?
Yeah. And the actual, the interesting part of that is we are turning down colleagues, customers, friends, because it's lighting and it's the lighting industry, and we've all been in the lighting industry for a very long time. But what's kind of nice is mostly people understand, where the line is drawn, right? It's, yes, we're a colleague or friend or customer. We try and put together the best program possible every year. And that's actually why Wendy and I both, if I may speak for you for a second, that's actually why we do it. Because LEDucation has grown. It's become this fantastic show. It's no longer a New York City show. Sometimes I hesitate to call it regional, right? Because we have people coming from all over the country. But we try very hard to put together the best program we can. And according to what people tell us, we're doing a pretty good job. Maybe.
Our last in-person show, every presentation was standing room only, which was great. And then when we switched to virtual, this is our third virtual, I don't know how we're going to accommodate all the people that want to come to the presentations when we go back to a live in-person show, because we had 600 people at one of the presentations this past time.
So you guys have in-person LEDucation. Was it always just one a year? And then when did virtual start? I know, did it start right at COVID, or were you doing virtual before that?
Right at COVID. Like right at COVID, because we were scheduled. Yeah. Our show was
this is the 1-year anniversary of the cancellation of your last show.
Correct. Postponement.
That's a better term.
Because I remember distinctly, I was driving from a customer at the far end of my territory, and I'm driving back from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to New York. And I spent most of that drive on the phone on teleconferences with our full committee, which is 6 people, maybe 7, talking about what we're going to do. And it was March 6th as I was doing that drive from Pittsburgh. And we spent all day on the phone figuring out what we were going to do. How are we going to put together a virtual presentation? Oh, and by the way, what's a virtual presentation, right? Like nobody knew anything. We got a show manager involved. But we did it. And now it's kind of streamlined. Wendy and I still do the same thing that we do, but instead of running around like lunatics, through the hotel from room to room, our show manager took a much greater role with his staff and, ran the virtual presentations. Crazy.
So why have you guys done 3? It's only been a year. Why not just do 1 a year?
Wendy.
We did the virtual one because we already had the speakers, and we had hoped, unknowing, that we would be able to do an in-person show in August. We already had a commitment with the hotel. We already had all of the booths. We already had a lot of the speakers. And so we felt that we should do another show. The same thing is happening this year because we had already committed to do a show in March. And now we're hoping to be able to do an in-person show in August. And we still don't know.
Right.
I mean, there's just no way to know yet.
Right. And we were trying hard. We talked about how to not oversaturate all of our potential attendees who are already oversaturated with, 15 Zooms a day. Who knew what Zoom was? 15 Zooms a day, or Microsoft Teams, or whatever we're doing. And, how do you do that? So kind of the blessing in disguise was, yeah, we're doing 2 of them in 2021 so that we could accommodate, 10 presentations, 10 good speakers, just the other week, not oversaturate people. We could do 5 a day. And 5 a day is reasonable. People can work. People can not miss the beginnings of one because they were on another one. They have to log back in, that sort of thing. And, we kind of, who knows what the restrictions are going to be or not in August. It may be a hybrid. We're not sure.
And with all of your presentations, is this content, the virtual ones, is it on demand after the fact, or is it only during the show?
The presentations get posted after the fact. We try not to post them during the show, although sometimes they get posted during the show, but they are posted after the fact so people can review them if the meeting came up or they couldn't get there or something came up. The credits, the AIA credits, you have to attend the show, the presentation live. But CEU credits, those are self-certifying, so you can go ahead and self-certify yourself and watch the presentations after the fact.
So do you think going forward, you guys envision LEDucation as a 2-time per year event, whether it's virtual or online or in person?
I don't know.
Okay.
To
be determined.
Craig?
Yeah.
No, I think all things being equal, I would hope that it's a 1 time a year thing, and it's the big focus in the industry of that month, and we go back hopefully to some semblance of normalcy, and we do Wendy, what were we doing? 33, 32 presentations for a live, normal standard LEDucation. And that's what we would all like to go back to someday, sooner than later, I would think.
Uh-huh. So this year, you guys... Yeah. Okay.
Typically, shows aren't done in the summer because people are on vacation, people are getting their children back to school, people are taking their children to college. We weren't the dates because of all the social distancing, the hotel requirements. We were very limited on dates. So August, July are not our ideal time frames. We really like doing the show in March. It's a very, very good time frame because it follows or precedes some other large shows, and it's just a very good time frame.
So New York is like the North American epicenter of COVID, although some would
Thanks
debate.
for bringing that up, Mike.
No, actually, it actually isn't. Toronto had it long before New York. They just didn't know what it was called.
Well, you guys are always bleeding edge, man. What can I say?
No, there's the fact is that there's tons of Toronto has a huge Chinese community, and I'm not going to go back down to this, but they probably had COVID in Ontario in October, November, and December. And long story short, but yeah, in terms of recognizing what it was and dealing with it, New York was the epicenter. You guys, though, my question is not on that. My question is, you guys have always been aggressive in rebooking your show, right? Way more than the other lighting shows, including ours, the National Association of Nailed Innovation. We've always been very tentative. You guys have always said, no, we're doing it. No, we're doing it. We're doing it. You guys were going to do it last August. Now you're going to do it this August. Where does that come from with you guys? Why are you so much more committed to that live event than other other
Well,
associations seem to be.
Wendy, can I go first, or would you like to go first?
Sure, go
I'll,
for it.
in my opinion, it's because we built this thing and we haven't sold it to anyone. We're all, the six of us on the committee, seven of us, are still the parents, right? So it's on us. It's 100% on us. And obviously in conjunction with our show manager and you know our marketing and PR folks, we are solely 100% responsible for it. So speaking for my entire committee, there's no way we're going to let any of that slack. That's my opinion.
I also think that there's a big hunger and in the industry for people to see new products in one collective place. This virtual show, well, the live event, the in-person show was extremely heavily attended because the booths are small, the vendors can only show their best, their brightest. You're not weighed down with wandering through a giant booth to find what's new, what's old. But the lighting designers, they know that the world hasn't stopped and that there's still innovation going on, and they want to see new products. If they can't see it in person, a virtual show is the next best thing. The other thing is that we've also made a commitment to not only our vendors and our speakers, but we have a commitment with the hotel. So we keep trying to move forward and complete the show. And we like doing it.
That's all good answers. I think when we talked LEDucation last time, there was a lot of talk of the value of intimacy and the importance of interactions with people at the show that are softer benefits, like not a hard benefit. None of those none of those exist virtually for me, at least. I mean, in the podcast world, it's good. These things work, but these are what we're doing is saying we're going to take an hour and we're going to have a conversation with one another that's open. It's not like, Greg's giving a presentation and we're sitting here typing questions into a possible chance of them being answered at the end by the speaker. So this is a different venue than a virtual show. But how do you guys, when you're thinking about it, why is the commitment so firm? I asked you guys that it's your show, you guys are the parents of it, but aren't you a little bit uncertain about this thing going off in New York in August?
Sure. Yeah. 100% unsure. You got that right.
How are you working? Are you working with the hotel and they have no idea what's happening and you have no idea what's happening, but still you're moving forward? Like, I love it. I think it's very courageous. But
we have a strong-willed show manager, a company that we hired some years back. Wendy's laughing at that. He'll laugh at that when he watches this podcast. But this is his business, and he has worked with the hotel. He and his team have worked with the hotel constantly. I feel like I heard him say that he talks to the hotel every 2 or 3 weeks because things can change, right? How many rooms do we get? What are the restrictions? What are the logistics of it? How many rooms do we need just to have all of our exhibitors participate, right? Because we have a lot of exhibitors. What rooms do Wendy and I have to put on the educational component of LEDucation? So the only way to do this is to stay vigilant with it. So we all do.
So your March 16th and 17th virtual convention, that you said was your third one. What does the growth look like over each one? Has there been growth, or has it been steady, or what have you looked at in terms of numbers?
The numbers were astronomical for this virtual presentation. And I've heard that the attendance was also very high for people visiting the booths, but we had almost 5,000 people in 10 presentations. I mean, it was huge. And
Wow.
Yeah, the signups were large. We think that with a virtual show that we can reach people who normally wouldn't be able to travel to see the show if it were an in-person show. So if somebody's sitting in Texas or California or France or Korea, they can join in, they can log on and see a virtual presentation. And I think virtual has been great for the presentations. There is, the loss of the seeing and feeling the products themselves, and that's a big, big, big deal. But I think moving forward, we like doing a hybrid idea because it reaches out to so many more people that can't physically attend the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. And I think we learned some lessons, right? The growth, as you talked about, is because we learned some lessons, right? The last time we did the virtual some months ago, we did them back to back and we tried to squeeze as many as we could in a reasonable amount of time over a couple of days. And what we learned is the same thing that happens in the in-person presentation happens in the virtual. Nobody wants to go from discussion to discussion to discussion because maybe they have to take some phone calls or maybe they have to check their email or they don't want to miss the end of this one or the beginning of that one, right? So we learned our lesson, we implemented what we learned, and suddenly we're seeing 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 people, not signups, attendees. But what you miss, you talk about missing, Wendy talks about missing the personal interaction or you touching a product. On our end, there is something to be said for the personal connection, the personal interaction, the feel of the room, the speaker, the presenter is reading the room and adjusting him or herself accordingly. And there's something about the in-person Q&A. There are people that like the anonymity. There are people who like to stand up with their microphone in their hand and ask their question and, because they think they're the smartest guy in the room and that's okay. But that's missing. There are plenty of benefits for doing it virtual. There's a big, strong argument for doing it live. And I think Wendy's right. I think we're going to wind up doing some sort of hybrid for our first venture out into the in-person world.
I think it's important to note that whenever you have a catastrophic event like this, whatever your opinion on is what happened, and there are a lot of opinions on that, but there, there's leftovers, right? So you said that you learned a lot. So Greg and I, when we were live streaming from shows and recording our podcasts, we were light years ahead of everybody else in terms of utilizing video streaming technologies. Now that advantage has evaporated. Everybody knows how to do this now. Every grandmother knows how to record a Zoom call. It's definitely leveled the playing field in that sense, and it's given people access to a technology and something that's never going to change. But I think the existence of this podcast right now, Craig, goes back to a serendipitous meeting at a live show. And that can never be replaced.
Yeah, right.
And the Starving for Darkness podcast, which is growing very quickly, that we started on the darkness issue, goes back to a serendipitous interaction at a live show where two people met one another, were eating and ate with one another, and then discussed things with one another, and trust was forged, and then a relationship built. You can't do that virtually. I don't think it's even possible, even if with the most advanced 3D headsets and all this sort of stuff that's out there. So I agree with you that we have to bring it back to live shows because it's essential for people to meet one another. We're a species that needs that, and this is an industry that is built on these live events.
Well, and what you just said is exactly right. So this, the Starving for Darkness, among others, we've had a couple of different people over the past few years, a couple of whom we all have in common right now. I don't know. Can we say names?
Sure, yeah, throw it out there, yeah.
Yeah, so Jane Slade,
Sure.
We've had her as a speaker. I know you know her. We've had her a number of times. Other people have spoken about various, environmental issues and the Dark Sky Initiative and outdoor lighting in general. But none of those things might have happened had we not had live events, right? People, Wendy's at a conference somewhere and somebody says, "Are you that Wendy?" And she goes, "Maybe." And then it's, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm that Wendy. Well, I have this talk I've been thinking about, so do it, submit, tell me what you're talking about." Right? we've coached people, novices, before submission, not so much in what to submit, but yes, you should do this. Get out there in public, show your peers in your industry that you have something to say, and we're a great platform to get up and say it. Show
Some of the
someone.
best speakers are the ones that are shy to do it, and that's why you're getting rid of all the like. Everybody's a life coach now. Basically life coach is like a synonym for egotistical narcissist. Okay, like those are synonyms. Okay,
I don't disagree with that at all.
but some of the people that are really nervous, to speak, are the ones really that need to be encouraged. They're holding on to a lot of good knowledge. And it's wonderful that you give them that opportunity. So, all right, I want to change gears a little bit here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about LEDucation content. Now, I have to confess that I haven't viewed your conference online, but I want to ask you, in the beginning, early days of LED, when we started this whole LED adoption boom, there was very little negative talk about LEDs. And then slowly around 2016, we started to see the drip of some of the problems come out. Flicker was one of the big ones that came out. Then you see the uniform 5,000 Kelvin at night issue. Then infrared spectrum missing starts to slip out. And these other issues that start to come out. Is LEDucation taking these things head on right now? Are you guys addressing these issues head on?
If we have talks that come in that address those issues, we will definitely promote those talks. We, as the presentation chairs, we don't present topics, but when we do put the call out for speakers, we do say, and we're looking for talks on this topic and this topic and this topic and this topic. So if we know something's hot, we will definitely ask, put that in the call for speakers information.
Because I think the age of 2014 or 15, if someone had mentioned something to you about lighting, it would have all been energy efficiency based. This is so wonderful for climate change in the environment, and the lighting industry has left that conversation behind. I don't know if the policymakers and the utilities and other people in the industry have fully said, you know what, lighting has played its role in this. There's not really much more we can do, and now we're going to get back to making beauty, and we're making practicality. Is that do you guys feel that sort of thrust again, Wendy?
So I don't agree that the energy thing is over, because if you go into, I would say that maybe 50%, because if you go into any drugstore, grocery store that's not a chain and isn't new, you go into so many restaurants, you're not going to see LEDs still. There is still a huge amount of other lighting being used. There's always going to be issues with different light sources. When you had fluorescent and they switched to the 34 watt lamp, you had flicker then. So flicker's always been discussed. Then they switched to T8, and there were issues with T8, and then there were issues with T5. And so there's always going to be different lighting things. People will have preferences on color temperatures and on the way that they dim. And so there's always going to be something going on. Right. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, but I think energy is always still there, or you wouldn't still have people like the Design Lighting Consortium providing rebates in California, doing their Title 24 and their JA8. And Energy Star programs, and those are still very active and very ongoing.
Yeah, I think the adoption. Let me just make a point on that, though. The adoption of that last 50% is largely inevitable. Like those are good. Eventually, those lights are going to be changed. There's absolutely no question about it. Whether it's in the next year or the next 5 or 10 years. In 5 or 10 years, you're going to see 90% or something like that. But yes, go ahead, Craig.
Where the art meets the science. Right? That is still the cutting edge, because, and I have to say that as a controls guy, energy efficiency, that discussion, that never goes away, because no matter what anyone's doing, it's, and I have to be below X watts per square foot. Okay, great. And I need this to look really beautiful. How's your dim curve? Right? And this list goes on and on, but it's It's the folks that are able to meld the art and the science of lighting. They'll continue to be successful. There'll be beautiful spaces. There'll be beautiful high-end restaurants or a beautiful hotel lobby or whatever it is that is energy efficient. And by the way, those are the people we want talking at LEDucation.
So speaking of that, what was the most popular topic you had this year? And I don't know how you measure that other than maybe attendance, or feedback or whatever it might be.
The only, Wendy, I'm going to actually let you answer this, but the only real metric we have, well, we have two metrics. We have an official metric, which is the number, right? The number of attendees. And the unofficial metric is all the people that we talk to after the show that call us and say, that was great, right? But it's the official metric that we obviously use to gauge what we're going to do next.
Thanks for letting me answer.
There was a real lot of interest.
There was a lot of interest in residential applications. We had two programs that were based on the environment, and they were very, very heavily attended. Healthcare lighting, because of the use of LEDs to get rid of germs, was very well attended. NGL, which always talks about different controls and things like that, is always well attended. There wasn't any topic that wasn't popular. So I think we picked well, and I think the speakers did a fantastic job. Just amazing job. I got an email this morning about one of the talks still.
Yeah, and to that point, it's metrics. They're always difficult. We try to figure it out from the podcast side too, and it's the unofficial ones that matter. I think you can do all the metrics you want, but unofficial, people like it. That's what you go with.
Again, you're circling back to the personalization of it all.
Yeah, for sure. Now in August coming up, assuming you have it, I assume you guys have you started doing call for speakers. What are you going to be looking for? Or are you just taking a breath?
I'll take this one. We got so many submittals for this past show that I think that we're going to use those submittals and just pull from there, because we had we couldn't fit as many people as we would have liked to. And as Craig said, we've learned that maybe less is a little bit more when we're trying to do these types of talks. Since we don't know what the rooms are going to be, we think maybe we're going to have to combine some rooms. Whereas we could have put 200 people in a room, now we're going to have to combine two rooms and maybe only hold 50 people. So there's a lot of going on. So we'll probably pull from the people that we already have.
If it's possible, I'd love to see a format at Light Fair or LEDucation that was debate related, where you had two people that hold, respectable opposing positions on a topic, and with a moderator, and have them debate. I would love to see presentations like that.
So the DLF, which is the parent organization, the DLF-NY Designers Lighting Forum, which is the parent organization of LEDucation, has a program every year in February called The Debate. It just passed.
Oh, man.
Yep, we do that every year. And what we try to do is we pair up people and we try to give them the opposite of what they would want to talk about. So if somebody's heavily in favor of controls, we would make them say why controls aren't good. So it's really great program. I think maybe it's been going on about well over 5 years now. It's a great program, and we do it every year.
Right. But I'll tell you something. It is. It's a great debate.
It
is. Because Wendy and I try very hard not to color what gets submitted. If someone listening to this podcast would like to put that in as a submission, it's 3 people or something, whatever it is, and it's the moderator and pro and anti something, or whatever it is. We would absolutely consider that.
Well, we kind of had a debate that one year. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, when we had that whole slew of people sitting and everybody was talking about different things.
That is true. That is true.
There's nothing like
It
a good
went well. It was
nothing
very
like a
interesting.
moderated discussion. That's a moderated discussion, right? So you have a moderator and you have 4 or 5 people. I've seen some fireworks go off in those, man, at other
Oh yeah.
events. You know, those can
Oh
get
yeah.
pretty tight. You know, I did
There
it.
were fireworks in the audience participation on that one.
Yeah.
Well, because that was the second time they had done that, right? That group of people had done it at the previous IES conference, the annual conference, and I was in the audience for that, and I thought it was fantastic. And I immediately grabbed them all as a group and said, "Great, now submit this for LEDucation," which they did, and it was, yeah, you're right. It was, that kind of thing is fantastic, but that absolutely 100% does not translate into a virtual format, right? That has to be live.
Unless it's on the Get a
And
Grip
we
on
have
Lighting podcast.
Unless,
Happens with me all the time, brother.
come on, let's be real.
You know, at the end of the day,
program. We have another program that we've been trying to do for 2 years now that can only be done live. So that one's still sitting on the back burner because it's kind of a show and tell thing, and it would never translate with a camera because it's
sure.
about color, and it just doesn't work on camera.
Right.
So we're waiting for that one for in person.
Look, humans like to watch other humans fight, whether that's in a cage, in a ring, on a stage with microphones, whatever it is. Humans love to watch conflict, but there's no conflict over at Satco, Greg. Satco.com. SATCO.com, brother. The light thing, right thing people. The gangsters down in New York. What's going on with them?
Well, I'll tell you that some conflict I had when I first started in lighting was when somebody wanted a decorative fixture and they asked me to figure it out. I spent hours trying to figure it out. I'm not a decorative fixture type of person, but I would send them all these links and how about this one? This one, pricing, availability of it all. And I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? You figure it out. You figure out the look, then you tell me. And that's what Satco's website can do. You can go on their collections tab and it actually gives you the overview of the look and the style of these decorative fixtures. They tell you that, then I can deal with you. Otherwise, I don't want to deal with you. That's how I do it.
Satco Nouveau, folks. Go to SATCO.com. That's right, the gangsters down in New York. And Wendy and Craig, say bye to everybody that's been listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to your audience, and put in those submissions for LEDucation next time.
So you got to check out LEDucation and, of course, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. That's NAILD.org. That's right. Get associated. If you're a lighting distributor, electrical distributor, what are you thinking about? Go to nail.org. And, of course, if you made it to the end of the show, hey, we got nothing but love for you. Thanks for listening.